and ended with the Republican National Convention. At least that piece of it ended with the Republican National Convention. So about the middle of June, we were served with a lawsuit. Are you all familiar with that? Anybody familiar with it? So this lawsuit was a lawsuit from some folks that had been elected as delegates in other states outside of Oregon, and they had sued in federal court to release them from their pledge as a delegate so that they could vote for whomever they wanted at the Republican National Committee. That lawsuit was filed in the middle of June, and it sort of put us on notice that nationally there was some kind of action going on. I couldn't tell you what it was or who was financing it, but there was some kind of action that was going on that was going to put us under a lot of scrutiny. And I was named in the suit. The state of Oregon Republican Party was named in the suit, which is kind of odd because we hadn't had our convention, but that was the way it was. As we go into the convention, we took care to make sure that we did it as best as we possibly could. Is that an editorial comment? Okay.
Absolutely.
We took care to do it as best as we possibly could. We banded everybody when they came in. We took very much care in order to make sure that the electronic records that we kept matched the county records of the filings. I personally spent a lot of hours with staff going through it to matching all those things up, because we were able to then verify that people that were admitted were actually people that could vote. And I think that part went very smoothly. I think we did a good job with that. The day started out and went very smoothly as we started going through the day. I think it took longer than we had certainly anticipated because of the diligence that people were putting into this. And it stretched out. We got a lot accomplished. The only thing we didn't get accomplished was the election of the alternate delegates. All of the other elections, in fact, took place by the 5 o'clock adjournment. Oregon is a little bit different than other states. In fact, I think we're unique in the fact that we run a single convention at 5 different sites. That's the way it's always been. One agenda distributed among these 5 sites. The agenda is set by the chairman. And so it's like as if the convention was in one convention center and people were in 5 different rooms. Now, it's not the most effective way to do it.
It's not the right way to do it.
No other state does it that way. And since that time, we've put a process in place to go back through and reanalyze the whole thing.
Who set a 5 o'clock deadline?
I did.
Why?
Because I set the 5 o'clock
Because you wanted to.
No. I set the 5 o'clock deadline because I knew that people were going to make plans coming from all over the state, that we had certain locations that had to shut down at 5. I knew that we were going to do that, so I set the 5 o'clock deadline.
What gives you the power to do that?
Yes.
I have the power to do that.
No, you
And
don't.
wow.
No, you don't.
Okay,
Where do you
wait.
get the power to do that?
Okay, excuse me. It's been verified through the process that I, in fact, had the power to do that.
What process?
The process with the RNC.
RNC?
The Republican National Committee. We've gone through this. We went through the process.
Is that another way of saying rules,
well,
regulations?
let me talk to you about the process. Okay. So I set the agenda. I set the 5 o'clock deadline. Some people didn't agree that this was the right process. They didn't agree that that was it. We went through a series of hearings, and I won't get every single date right, but it started with the first hearing in August back at the RNC. They ruled, in fact, that we had done things right. I then went back to a hearing. We had attorneys on the other side. The attorneys on the other side are big DC law firm attorneys. I talked to them. They were being paid by somebody. I don't know who was paying for them, but they were being paid by somebody. They walked through the process. I testified at the first hearing. I then went to the floor of the RNC, defended it at the floor of the RNC. We then went to a second hearing before 120 new people that we had never been in front of before. We represented everything else. Every single time the ruling was very consistent throughout the entire process.
That's an intellectually dishonest answer for the following reason. I don't disagree with you that there was a decision in your wasn't a legal decision, it was a political decision.
It's-
The process is political, and they didn't make any decisions intellectually about application of the rules. The only decisions they actually made was they were going to affirm for political reasons.
Yeah.
None of the decisions cited law, rules, or anything else that support you. That doesn't mean you did it right. It doesn't mean you did it wrong. But it isn't a proof that you did it right. So I think that's not supportable.
I respectfully disagree with you.
Can we just let him
Okay.
finish, please, and
Why?
then have questions?
No,
Can
we can
let
take,
him-
we can take questions as we go. If that's okay with you. I don't mind doing that. Yeah,
So
Duncan?
Don't the bylaws give you the responsibility for setting the time for the convention?
Yeah, and they,
Article 14, I
they
believe.
do, and I don't want to go through and re-dissect the entire thing here. I can talk about the process that we went through. We spent a lot of time. There were really, really, really high-powered attorneys on the other side that went through and dissected this whole thing as well. And it came out that they felt that we followed our process as defined in our rules and the bylaws.
Can you
Now,
show
to
me-
your point, sir, what's your name?
Lowell Cooper.
What is it?
Lowell Cooper.
Lowell Cooper. Lowell, to your point, the process is not perfect by any stretch of the
Absolutely.
imagination, right?
Absolutely.
And as we went through this, we
Real
said
technical.
there are significant holes in the way the rules and the bylaws are drafted in terms of how we want to do this on a go-forward basis. But we had to deal with what we had. That was it. So we dealt with what we had.
There's never before been an adjournment
Can he
time.
finish? Sir,
There's no
excuse
such
me.
thing as
Okay, wait.
adjournment. Those double
Excuse-
asterisks at the
We
end.
went through.
We need some order.
So-
He was responding to him. Can we do some in order here?
So-
You come next, or
So
she-
what we
no.
did was we followed the process that we had. We've already put in place a committee to go through and investigate the process on a go-forward basis, and we will make changes to that process as we go forward. Okay? And go ahead, what was your point?
You put it, you put some pretty strong language, and I'd like to know where you think you get this power from. On the agenda of the day for the convention, at the bottom of it, you say that the party chairman, Alan Alley, under the authority of Congressional District rules established by the Oregon Republican State Central Committee, and are final and not subject to modification. And then you say that you've made these rules months and ahead of time, and then you say that in your letter that the night before you guys were figuring out how to change the rules, and you made this 5 o'clock deadline. How can you put on here that subject not to modification when everything we do is subject to modification?
Yeah, the rules were set and filed with the RNC.
When?
The months
night
and months.
before?
No. Months and months and months ago. And they had to be approved by the RNC. And the RNC approved those rules.
And then why did you come up with the night before that you had a 5 o'clock deadline?
I didn't come up with it the night before. The day before, it was a 4 o'clock deadline. And if you follow what happened, there was a 4 o'clock deadline. There was a call with people. People said you're never going to finish this by 4, so it was changed to 5 based on input of people that felt that we couldn't finish by 4.
What gives you the authority to do that?
I have the authority under the rules and bylaws of our party, and it was verified through this process that we
I've
went
got
through.
those right here. Can you show me
Yeah,
what rule
Mr.
number?
Mr. Taylor, I'm not going to go through that with you. I don't think
It's
that's
easy.
beneficial.
Well, yeah,
only-
I'd like
it's a
to
couple
hear it
pages.
myself.
Excuse me.
Can I ask a question?
Excuse
It's
me.
only a couple pages.
No, wait.
We're talking about delegates for Ron Paul, I take it.
No.
And all I want to know is
No,
how
wait,
not
wait,
even.
Sit down.
Sit down.
No.
It's fine.
Okay.
I'm not going to go through and rehash the whole thing. We've been through this. I think the documents are public. You've seen the documents. If you don't agree with them, okay, I understand. But it was a very transparent process.
So you can't point to any rules that give you the authority for adjournment.
I'm not going
Robert's
to.
Rules of Order doesn't even give power for adjournment.
I'm not going to
Wait,
do that here.
It's the power to convene is what he's citing, although.
But
Yes,
it's
sir,
not
in
the
back.
power to
What that
adjourn.
includes.
Sir? Yes.
Yeah, my thing is, and my question is, when the 5 o'clock rule hit the floor down in Roseburg, a preponderance of people down there were shocked and did not know that it was a 5 o'clock cutoff, and were extremely irritated that it wasn't a well-known fact.
We're
And
agendas
I'm one of them that's extremely irritated, because I consider you cut my vote off deliberately and maliciously.
I appreciate that. Were agendas distributed? Were there agendas that were laying around?
I don't think, it wasn't
Yes, there
made
was.
clear that there was
Okay.
no adoption of rule and the rule was
But-
republished.
They were
what
not adopted.
rule are you talking
No,
about?
you're talking about the
Agenda.
agenda as the rule.
No,
That was never made clear at the beginning.
no, I don't know, I wasn't there.
I know, that's what
But,
I'm telling you, it was never made clear.
The agenda is set by the chairman of the Oregon Republican Party. That's clear in the rules and the bylaws. The agenda was set, it's exactly the same agenda at every site. Every single site had exactly the same agenda. You didn't cook one up in CD4 and you didn't cook one up in CD2. It was exactly the same, and that's because it's actually one meeting. It's not the best way to do this. It's the way we've always done it.
That's exactly right, it's not the best.
Alan, I don't want to argue
Okay.
these points with you, but there is additional authority that argues equally validly that it's 5 separate meetings.
Okay.
And that all you had was the authority to convene, not the authority to adjourn, and not the authority to write all the rules, aside from the authority that the RNC imposed from the outside by having standard rules. And on that basis, it could equally be argued they were different conventions. It doesn't do us any good to argue that today, but it would at least do you well to acknowledge that the other side has just as many valid points.
No, that process, both of those sides were argued throughout this process.
Yes, but there was never a legal decision rendered, meaning that the decision that was rendered was not based on which had the best analysis of the law. It was purely political.
Well, there were 4 attorneys and 4
Yes.
what I would call lay people, and
The number of attorneys
and a
doesn't
former-
change the decision.
and a former chairman of the RNC went through this process with us. And if you look at the rulings that they had, because several states were contested,
Yes.
they didn't rule the same way in every single state.
But they were still political
They
decisions.
got the same results.
I don't agree with you.
Well, I agree with him. We had our votes stolen away from us.
Well, and I don't respectfully, I don't agree with you there. You
Well,
had.
you don't agree, if you don't, I don't care.
Okay, that's fine.
It's a fact.
But you had, excuse me, just a second, let me answer his question. You voted on everything except for the alternate delegates. You
We
elected your.
voted on those also.
Well, you elected your CD chairs, you elected all these
We elected
people.
our delegates,
As a
and you threw them out.
Well, I didn't throw them out.
I
The
guess you
process
did.
was, we adjourned at 5 o'clock, you had the notice, everybody had the notice, it was the same notice in every single location.
No, you threw them out.
No, sir, I didn't.
I don't know
didn't.
if you, I don't know who's
Okay,
thrown
yes,
them
sir.
out, but from what I understood, the people, one of them was in Bend. Well, there was 2 other districts that were
Right.
very unhappy and in the same condition we did, and kept right on going.
Yeah,
Well, if that made it 2 other districts, and that's 3 of them, then you had a communications breakdown of major proportions, and you pissed a lot of people off.
it
And
was.
that's your responsibility, because you're standing up there now.
Yes, sir,
And if you didn't get the word out,
and if I didn't accept responsibility, I wouldn't be standing here right now. Right?
well, there's a difference between
Now,
saying
sir-
you accept the responsibility, and now what are we gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Well, what we're gonna do about it is we're gonna change the process as we go forward. This process.
Who's
when-
changing it?
We are, the Republican Party of Oregon is, with input from lots of different people, with your county chairs and the people that ran your CDs.
Anybody
you know,
not here gonna be
excuse-
in that changing and making those changes?
I
Yes.
don't know.
We actually established a 5-person committee to go through the process.
For
Most of them are here
the
tonight
grievance committee?
at the grievance committee, and they will submit their findings to the
Sure.
Oregon Republican Party, which will be considered when we revise the process.
Sir, let me get to you, but let me talk to his question. When I first heard that this was our process, I was incredulous. And these rules, bylaws, and process had already been filed and approved by the RNC. Once they're filed and approved with the RNC, we can't change them.
That's not the one that was at issue.
Okay,
The 5
well,
o'clock
let-
deadline was never part of the RNC
Okay.
rules.
Would you mind if I finish my answer?
Nobody's stopping you, and that's really not a nice way to speak to somebody.
Okay, well, I'm just asking. I'd like to follow a process and at least answer the question. So, we did not have a lot of latitude to change things. In fact, we didn't have any latitude to change things because it had already been filed with the RNC. So we had to deal with what we had. And we talked about things like, let's do electronic voting at all 5 different CDs, and that would have sped things up because your vote would have been recorded immediately. People had issues with that. There's no paper trail. There's that sort of thing. So we decided, okay, we're going to have to use something with the paper trail, and we're going to have to save all the ballots. So that created another level of overhead, and we excruciatingly went through, color-coded all the ballots, tried to do the best thing that we possibly could. We weren't able to quite get it done in time.
But Alan, it all comes down to the 5 o'clock deadline, and that was never imposed by the RNC. And since it was your authority, you're saying, that created the entire thing, then apparently the entire problem rests with the way you exercise your authority and nothing from the outside.
Okay, I respect your opinion in that. I went through and I said, okay, if this is taking us longer than we had anticipated, what happens at 5 o'clock? This is what we did the night before. And people looked at everything and they came back and they said, we adjourn at 5 o'clock. Based upon everything that we've done.
Do you have a vote count on that?
No, it was.
That's what I wondered.
Yes, sir.
So I was at the CD4 meetings, this gentleman was, my lovely wife was, and one of the things that gives us, me personally, such heartburn over this was some gentleman, and I'm sorry I don't know his name off the top of my head, somewhere around 4 p.m., 4:15, somewhere there, some gentleman stood up and said, it's obvious we're not going to get done. Now this was at the CD4 meeting in Roseburg. It's obvious we aren't going to get everything done, all the business done. I make a motion that we extend the hours until all of our normal business is accomplished. There was a second. We had a vote. The vote said aye. So we all thought, here we go, we're going to go on. Now, there was a parliamentarian there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a chairman there. And at that time, at least, I don't recall, no, we can't do this. The 5 o'clock deadline has been set. It's what we have to adopt. No, we voted as a group. We extended the period until however long it took. And by the way, it took till about 8:30, 9 o'clock to get it done. And we thought this is great. And then later on we find out there's going to be a meeting of the state office folks, including yourself. And
it was actually right
the
here.
I know, and the alternate delegates are going to be selected or elected. I'm not sure what the proper word is. And so we're going, I don't understand. We extended our meeting. We did it what we thought was in a Robert's Rule legal lawful manner. Not that I'm an attorney by any means. And we went through that process.
Yeah. So I am aware of that. And again, using the analogy of it's as if we were in one big convention center in 5 separate rooms.
Forget it, you're not there. You're in one, when our convention was down there and you had 5 more spread out, but that's immaterial.
Okay. Would you like, I'd like to try to answer the questions if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So the analogy that we used as we went through this process to help people understand was, it's like you're in one, pardon sir? What did you say?
I just said the BS you used.
Okay. What we did was we said, okay, the analogy is as if we were in one giant convention center with 5 separate rooms. In that, one of the rooms said, okay, we'd like to continue. But that wasn't the entire convention saying that we'd like to continue. This isn't perfect. Believe me, I'm not trying to stand up here and say, we've got the best button-down process in the whole world. And what we did ran perfectly. And you guys are just wrong for having the opinion that it didn't work out right. Right? I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be standing in front of you today trying to give you information about how this process worked and didn't work if I didn't care about how you feel about this.
But you could have also have avoided everything by appointing the same people that were elected.
May I
That could have
respond back to
short-circuited everything.
Okay, let me finish up with him and I'll get to you. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for answering my question. And I understand the answer quite well, I believe. And I think I understand your explanation of why you did what you did. My problem is the parliamentarian who was there didn't seem to know about the 5 o'clock deadline, or at least didn't communicate it with us. The chairman of the group, CD4, didn't seem to know about the 5 o'clock deadline, or that it couldn't be extended. So I guess my real question is, why, at the group you were at, the group you were at obviously knew because you were there. But the one I was at didn't seem to know, and the people in charge hadn't been communicated or didn't understand that it couldn't be extended, because we definitely did that.
Yes, and there was not perfect understanding in every location about exactly what would happen. I know that, and I wasn't at CD4.
Right.
But in certain of the CDs, as fed back to me, when things got, let's say, less than orderly, it was very difficult for anybody to do some kind of orderly process at that point in time. Now, to your point of the people that were elected, I have no way of knowing who was there, how they were elected, what the process was. It was so chaotic. People were out in the parking lots in some of the CDs. I don't know if that's true in CD4 and CD5. That certainly happened. We lost control of who exactly were delegates and weren't delegates. You actually couldn't tell them apart at that point in time. And so because the entire body didn't vote to extend, we said, fine. We have clean results, very clean results, all the way up until 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock, I don't have clean results. And that's why we met here. We actually elected secret ballot, same process.
Appointed.
No, it isn't.
Why isn't it?
You didn't.
It's not authorized.
It's not authorized and everybody wasn't there.
No.
It's been 30 days.
30 days.
It's
You have
not
30 days
authorized.
to call that rule. You only did it in less than a week.
Okay.
And you appointed them, not elected them.
Okay.
That's right.
They
You
were
appointed all of them,
You did not elect them. We elected.
people who didn't want
Okay.
to be there.
They were.
And you did have adequate information about some of the CDs.
The process that we went through was an election process. Again, that was verified. It was secret ballots. Let me tell you how, here's the other thing. With the 20-some people that were in this room and a few people on the phone, it still took 3.5 hours to do this cascading election of the alternate delegates, and that's when everybody was in this room. The amount of time that it would have taken, if you go back on the very first ballot, because what we would have to do is duplicate what we did for the delegate election. We started that election at 9 a.m., started the voting around 11 o'clock. I reported the results at 2:30, right? That's how long it took all the different CDs, just on that first ballot, to actually execute the ballot, verify the results, report the results
So what's
back to
your
me.
point?
The point is the amount of time that it would have taken, we weren't talking about 5 or 5:15. You were talking about 5 or 8:30. And several of the places had to vacate their premises. They actually had to physically leave. So, that's, pardon?
No.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Couldn't this have all been handled correctly had you had it in one area, one spot? And there are places that would hold that many people. This seems like it was, excuse my French, an asinine process with people not communicating, that it could have been solved by having it in one spot, and there shouldn't have been 5 different spots.
The reason I'm smiling is you're absolutely right. And when I first heard that this was one convention held at 5 different sites, all simultaneously coordinated, without the use of any kind of new technology in order to do this, I was incredulous. And
why
and
wasn't the process stopped then and said, we need to hold it in one spot?
because it had already been filed with the RNC. And this is the way that Oregon has done it for many, many,
That
many
doesn't
years.
matter.
Make it
It's
No.
been done for 20 years.
And they didn't
No,
even
and
budget
that's our opportunity.
They've gone till 7 or 8 o'clock at night and never had a problem.
And that's our opportunity on a go-forward basis to clean all this up.
But wait a minute, the addition of the 5 o'clock deadline was an additional problem imposed from inside. not from the RNC. So if we already have a problem with 5 different sites, why did you add to it with an artificial deadline?
I thought that we'd be able to finish it by 5 o'clock. And the second thing is that to not disenfranchise the people that came, not disenfranchise the people that had babysitters, not disenfranchise the people
But
that
you
needed to go pick up.
accomplished exactly that.
No, we didn't
Yes, you
actually.
did.
Yes,
you
you
did.
are.
We were there till 8 o'clock at night.
I have a comment I'd like to make.
Excuse me, Mr. Taylor, and if you want to editorialize while I'm talking, that's fine, that's your prerogative. But you were there till 8 o'clock at night. Many, 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 many delegates weren't. And I have to be responsible not only to you and this group, but I have to be responsible to all the delegates.
Is there a rule that they have to
Sir.
vote?
That who they?
Precinct committee people? Is there a rule that they have to vote? Could they have left and kept the convention going?
Yes.
As long as you had a quorum.
No, there's no quorum requirement.
No quorum for this.
So why do you say that you have to shut the conventions down if one place shuts down? Why do you shut all 5?
Because it's one meeting. It had a 5 o'clock adjournment. We adjourned at 5. It's
But there's
one
no
meeting.
quorum.
3 out of
So-
5 said stay open and keep going.
I don't think that's
That
true.
you-
Yes, sir.
So my question is, you're talking about having the multiple locations was something that had already been filed with RNC. Who was it exactly that filed with RNC for that?
The Oregon Republican Party. The process is you have your rules, you have your bylaws, and you have your convention rules, and you file it with the RNC. I think it's October of the year previous, something like that.
As the chair of the ORP, did
Pardon?
you not
Yes.
think
Well,
that was funny
I
when
didn't
that
person.
happened?
Pardon?
Did you not think that was funny when that was happening?
He said
That
he
what
did.
was funny?
That it, having it in 5 different locations, you already said
I
that
didn't
it
even
was
realize it. When we filed in October, I hadn't even dug into it, so I didn't even realize that it was 5 locations.
So when did you find out that it was 5 locations?
As we
And
started-
then
as we
you
started-
were incredulous about it.
As we started setting up the meeting and we started looking at it with binoculars through the lens of this lawsuit.
Now, since you, though, in the whole process, you're saying that those votes that were after 5 o'clock were cast or used, then why couldn't you have originally said, well, wait a minute, let's change this and file something so that it could have been held in one location?
That
You
wasn't
could have,
the filing.
in October.
The 5 o'clock deadline wasn't in the filing.
You could have in October.
October of what?
You couldn't have made
11.
and you couldn't
Yes,
have
sir.
made an amendment to that at all.
No.
5 o'clock wasn't in the RNC filing.
That
No.
sounds stupid.
Wait a minute. I've hit them. You haven't asked a question yet. You haven't.
I
So what do
wasn't
you?
gonna ask a question, but I got to.
Okay.
It's interesting, you say after the 5, we voted, it's established, we voted to extend the meeting, and yes, some people left. Very fascinating thing about this election, I was around in the Reagan years, I've been to 3 conventions. I told my chair, I'd never seen a convention ran this way. And it's interesting to me that we set up a criteria, and I think there was 176 votes possible at C4. People left at noon. People left later in the day. I could have grabbed 2 or 3 votes and voted them and handed them to my chair, and they'd say, the rule
No, you
was
couldn't have.
that if you didn't go over the number
Couldn't have done that.
of the Lane County group, if we wouldn't have went over the original count, we were still okay, things wouldn't be questioned. But then, yeah, people did leave after 5 o'clock, because we screwed around till 6:30 before we got the next vote out.
I want to make one correction, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Sure.
I was there and individually handed out every ballot to every PCP from Lane County into their hand, and equally when they collected them, I went out and collected one from each person. Now, at the end of the day, by the time all this started to break down, we lost control over that process. And after 5 o'clock, people just kind of lumped their ballots all together and shoved them my way. I collected them and turned them in anyway.
Not an attack on you.
But there's no way after 5 o'clock to determine that what you're saying is not correct. I mean, they could have. You could have picked up 4 or 5 and lumped them together and handed it to me after 5 o'clock, and because of the breakdown in decorum at the meeting, I had no way to go back and say, these are all valid votes. So
Lauren, it is no way an attack on you. That was the way
I'm just trying to clarify the process and let you know that and I'm not defending anybody, I'm just stating facts the way they are. After the 5 o'clock hour, and by the way, our CD4 chair had yielded his gavel to the alternate chair who did the last 2 or 2.5 hours of the meeting, and he just kind of abdicated his responsibility there, which I think made things even tougher for us. But by the time 5 o'clock got there was a breakdown in decorum, and there was a breakdown in procedures, and I had no way to validate that every ballot that I handed out came back from the same person I handed it out to. Up to that point, I could do that. It was easy for me to do. But after that, everybody was kind of on their way out. We lost probably, I don't know, what would you say, a half of our group left after 5 o'clock for whatever reason.
After 6 o'clock.
And after 6, we lost more, and
Well,
it was
I
all
think
done.
we
There weren't
lost
very many of us
control
there.
of the meeting.
The meeting, we lost control of the meeting.
Control of the meeting, and
In
that
my
was
opinion,
the fault of the people who run it.
That's correct.
No, it wasn't the fault of him.
Bob
He wasn't
Avery
there.
ran the meeting.
It
Bob
doesn't
Avery.
matter.
No,
Whoever
no,
was
no.
there running
Listen.
it, he was.
I want people to be able to express their views and your observations, and that's a valid observation, and I appreciate that. Before I get to you, I think you had a question. I was trying to work around to the people.
You know, Mr. Alley, I didn't know that this meeting was to come and dispute about, whatever they're disputing about. I mean, I have my sights on something bigger, like getting organized here and do something for the party about getting Obama out of office. And I'm kind of, we spent 40 minutes and I'm not here, and I don't want to spend another hour talking about what are we doing, man? This guy's destroying our country.
Yes.
And I'm not going to sit and listen to arguments about our convention or nothing else. I want to get going here. I mean, I've been giving my money to our candidates. Now I want to see what we're going to do to organize, because Oregon is coming through with Republicans all over. I mean, we might just have a big upset here in this election. I can feel it.
You're absolutely right. Thank you. Thanks for the comment. Terri, and then I'll go back this way.
I wanted to speak to the young woman in the back specifically when you were asking about, because Alan hasn't been in this. I'm lots older than him, and I've been around for a long time. You're supposed to say you don't look it, but
No,
anyway,
you don't look it.
thank you, Diane.
No, we
but
just
but anyhow, I learned through this process because I've never gone anywhere to a CD convention since I've been involved, which is in the late 70s, except the Umpqua Community College. And they might have been somewhere else for CD4, but I've only gone there. And Fred Dayton shared with me when we were down looking at venues and making sure that this was, and by the way, you guys had the best setup of anybody in there with your transparent room that you objected to at the beginning. With glass that you could stand up and look. You all know, you can see it was totally a transparent. There was no hiding ballots anywhere like maybe had been rumored before we got there. That's a personal editorial there. But Fred was the one that told me, Terri, I was the one, and Fred's in Douglas County, and was your vice chair of your CD, that got it spread around to 5 different locations, because at that time, you may shake your head, but you're young, and at that time, it was hard from the people to come from Eastern Oregon and get over here and vote in Portland or Salem or wherever. So they thought if they had them centralized, that would make it so more people would attend. Now, you may not like that answer, but it was with the best of intentions that those people intentionally put these geographically around the state, so that more people could be involved in the process and didn't figure they had to spend big bucks to come. And so I just wanted you to know that wasn't created yesterday. And Lowell, I mean, that's just the way it is.
It is, but I think the crux of things right now is we live in a world that everybody could get there. And if you know, I mean.
Well, you just haven't lived in Wallowa Lake.
No, snow, but I used to live in central New York and I get 22 feet of snow. We got places, you know, so if you had to.
Let me,
But
on that,
that's neither
because
here nor there now.
we've talked to several other states, and we are the only state that does it this way. Most of the other states, they have a central place that can accommodate several thousand people, and we don't really. In fact, when I'm in Pendleton and I talk about we've moved our meeting to Central Oregon to make it more accessible for you, they go, Alan, it takes us longer to get to Bend than it does to Portland. That they can actually get to Portland faster than they can get to Bend. And so ours is a little bit different, but I would say, and this is a committee that's going to be put together that's going to help work through this process. I would anticipate that they're going to come up with a single location as we go through this. Let's go Dwayne, and then we'll come down here. You guys have asked several questions. Yes?
So we were able to get 170 whatever people together and vote in less than 3 hours. You have 5 totals from 5 conventions to get together. What took you over 3 hours, or up to 3 hours, to get those back to us?
I was in the central room, and I reported the stuff as fast as I got it from all these different convention sites. Some of them, I don't know if they had, I don't know, I wasn't there. I was only in one place. And all I was looking at, we did use some technology. We had a Google Doc that everybody was entering their results into. So there wasn't any ship it to me and that sort of thing. So they were entering their results. Different elections occurred at different times. You know, if you finished up an election and you could, people elected their CD people. Or they elected the presidential electors. I think that was another one that occurred during that time. I don't know. And this is, Dwayne, this is the problem of synchronizing in 5 different locations. I mean, we had tested the week before all of the internet connections, all of the cell phone connections to make sure that we had good connections. People, for a variety of reasons, it was difficult to get them on the cell phones. Texting was about the best way that we could do it. And we did have them connected via the internet. So syncing them up took time.
That's only 5 conventions. You're only looking at 5 sets of numbers. What took you so long? 3 hours to get those numbers together.
Dwayne, I don't know. I wasn't in each of these sites. All I can tell you is that I reported the results when they were all
You didn't
loaded.
have to be in the sites. You had to be in the one general location where the numbers got sent to.
Right, and what I'm telling you is I didn't have the numbers. I didn't get the numbers in
that.
I didn't get the numbers in 30 minutes and then sit on the numbers for 3 hours before I released the numbers. I released the numbers as soon as they were all compiled.
Who did then?
Who did what?
Sit on them for 3 hours.
I don't know. I don't know what happened in the individual locations.
There's only one location.
No. In the individual locations, you tallied your ballots locally.
Yes, we did that.
Right.
And then
they were reported into the central location, and they were entered into a spreadsheet at their location. I didn't even enter the numbers into the spreadsheet, right? I could just see the spreadsheet and see them light up as they would go. And there's a whole trail of emails and text messages from me saying, get your votes in, where are your votes, I don't have the votes, could you get the votes in? Once they were in, I totaled them up, they were totaled. I took a PDF of the document. The PDF was then sent back out to the sites as the official record. That's what we did. That's it.
Alan,
Yeah.
in CD4, we were still tallying votes while you were eating. Because we had one woman that had a diabetic reaction, we had to remove her. So I can tell you, during your lunch hour, we were still in there tallying votes. And if you would have checked your watch and looked through the window, you'd have seen that.
What time did you send the votes?
No, but you were eating lunch.
Their main question, sorry if you don't like it.
Well, you were eating lunch the way...
You come in the first time you've been to a convention, you don't know the rules, you don't know anything, and then you act like you're in charge of everything.
And you don't know shit either, because this is my second convention.
Let's cool it.
Is there going to be a...
You're a candidate, pull 10% of the vote,
Guys,
and you want 40% of the...
Chuck and Dwayne.
That has nothing to do with it.
On the
Delegates are
presidential
different.
This
election debate?
We picked statewide who our delegates are. You had one vote just like everybody else.
Why do I feel like this is 5 o'clock at CD4?
Lauren,
Do you get my point? I mean, do you actually get my point?
Do you get ours?
Yes. That I wouldn't be here if I didn't get your point. But what's going on right now, how could you conduct a meaningful election with any kind of rigor that I could go back and certify if this is the way things got?
What, like this you're talking right now?
This
No.
multiplied 100 times over.
My thing is, the only time that the delegates had a problem in leaving in any fashion was to run down the lady that had the ballots out in the parking lot and make sure that she didn't leave, and we got the ballots back.
Yeah, who told
We were
her
all,
to
we
leave?
just, hey, I'm speaking. Like, I'm speaking.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And this is one thing we need to knock off Ben. Brought her back in, sat her down, we got things going. Everybody was banded. All the delegates that were supposed to be there were banded.
Yep.
And in deference to Lauren here, I handed only my ballot to a person that was supposed to pick them up, and I handed it to you personally. There was a couple times that they were sent back out, and we had to revote because they didn't come in properly. So all the votes were taken, were very careful, even though we didn't have a presiding officer.
Okay.
So Lauren, that what you just got through saying was partially incorrect. Now, my next point is, who set up the flags, Obama or the Republican Party? I do believe that flag is supposed to be on the other side.
Oh. Is that
Lauren,
true?
is there gonna be a meeting here on October
They're
3rd
supposed to be
for the
switched.
debates? I mean, are we
You
gonna
sure?
watch the
I'll
debates
switch 'em.
here? In the headquarters?
Watch out, you're gonna stay out to see.
Oh, that's why they were there. It was stuck.
Well,
Let's-
not supposed to be stuck.
If
The American flag is supposed to be on the
is
right.
on a stage, it belongs on the right hand of the speaker. If the flag is on the ground, it belongs on the right hand of the audience. That's the
Oh.
proper
No, it's supposed to
flag.
be like this.
Well, wait.
Well,
What
then
did
it's
you
on the
just
ground.
If the speaker is on a stage, the American flag goes to the right hand of the speaker who is on a stage. If the speaker is on the ground, on the same level as the audience, the flag goes to the right-hand side of the audience. That's the proper decorum for the
There we
United
go.
States flag. I was a Eagle Scout.
He was Eagle Scout. And besides that, the Democrats probably threw the flag out of their convention.
There we
Yeah,
go.
they did.
I would
Glad we got that
We
solved.
trust too.
Alan,
Okay,
yes,
we're
sir.
on to Duncan, I believe.
what you said the day before you had a meeting to decide to have the 5 o'clock deadline. Or,
The meeting was just a logistical meeting to get all of the, because we had to print all the ballots at a central location. We put together ballot boxes, all the armbands, all the electronic credentialing, all the paper credentialing. We all met in one location and
Okay.
went through the process.
when it happened to me, I wasn't actually surprised. It just seemed to mirror a lot what was happening around the country. So my question is, was there any recommendation from the National Republican Party that you have a deadline for an adjournment?
No.
So it was all just Oregon's idea to...
No, it was, the agenda had been published with a 5 o'clock adjournment on it. And I told you that there was a 4 o'clock that got moved to a 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
So it had already been published, and as we were going through an agenda walkthrough, and I'm walking everybody through the agenda, we got to this point, and I said, okay, what happens at 5? Because I don't want to be making this up at 5 o'clock, right? So our attorney was there going through the rules, the bylaws, other people that understood this went through everything, and they came back and they said, we adjourn at 5.
Could have you changed that the day of the convention as you seen the process wasn't going to be finished, or
The entire body with a 2/3 vote, meaning all 5 locations would have had to vote to continue beyond 5.
And 3 didn't have the opportunity.
Well, some of them didn't. I don't even remember which ones did and which ones didn't.
One was 3.
But yes, sir.
So you stated earlier that you didn't take into consideration the votes that did come in after the adjournment.
After 5 o'clock.
After 5 o'clock, because you couldn't be sure of how organized bringing in those votes were with, like our congressional district had Bob Avery leave, right? Well, my question is, if he had not left, and if everything had still been done to the books, would you then have taken into consideration the votes, or would you still say?
Not unless every group had with a 2/3 vote said we will carry forward.
Okay.
Okay, and there was a second point to that I wanted to make.
Bob Avery was still there and still presiding, but he gave the gavel over to his vice chair. So
Yeah,
just a minor thing.
Every group would have had to say that we will continue forward, and the alternate,
But there was
the
no
at-large,
mechanism for that.
excuse me, the at-large alternates, again, had to be selected before the CD alternates, because it was this cascading dependency of ballots, which is another thing. I don't think that's unique to Oregon, but it's unusual that you can file for these cascading positions, that I can file for at-large and I can file for CD. And what that means is you have to do the at-larges first. You have to compile all the results, and this is what took from 9 a.m. we started the thing, from 11 a.m. to 2:30, compiling all those results, going through and crossing off all the names on the individual CD ballots would have had to have been done. That's what we did right here before you elected the different CD candidates. Otherwise, you could disenfranchise some of the CD candidates by having somebody on the ballot, if Lauren had won, having him on the ballot taking votes away from somebody else. So that was the other complication, is these are dependent votes that we had.
Alan.
Yeah, I did the same thing,
Alan,
except I don't think I just smirked.
did you,
Yes.
do you think it's beneficial to tell them how the votes were taken on the 30th then for the alternate?
I think we covered that. I mean, it was secret ballots, it was the same process. Yes, sir.
So then my next question is, why weren't the PCPs allowed to observe that meeting?
This meeting, the executive committee meeting, it was an executive committee meeting.
They're usually open, aren't they?
Sometimes. That's another thing that we're looking at, is putting together guidelines for executive committee meetings when they're open and when they're not.
Have you ever had a higher security for them before?
No.
I'm
you ever-
sorry, I don't feel like my question is answered. Why weren't they allowed in?
It was my decision to have a closed executive
I
committee
understand,
meeting.
I'm asking you why you made that decision.
It was my decision to have a closed executive committee meeting.
Okay,
Still have a
thanks.
question.
That's all.
Thank you.
Yes,
Can we get the minutes from that meeting from the secretary?
yes.
How do we do that?
I think they're already out. No, they haven't been approved yet. Once they're approved, you can have them, sure.
So, do we get them off the website, the
Once
GOP
they're approved.
website, or?
Once
where?
they're approved, they'll be available. They're very simple.
How long does it take to get them approved?
The executive committee has to meet in order to approve them. We met at the last, we met just a couple of days ago. We'll meet again before the central committee meeting. We'll approve them at the central committee meeting on October 6th. Yes, sir.
I'm aware of a Sarah Nelson that was allowed into this meeting who wasn't a PCP.
I think Sarah was actually out there,
Okay,
and she came in. She was a Romney representative,
Okay.
and she came in to advocate for the Romney position, just like representatives from all the campaigns were. So Sarah was not in the meeting,
So then,
other than to advocate for Romney at the appropriate time when she had her 2 minutes to do that.
when the minutes are released, will I be able to find out who the other representatives were?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're in there.
Who took the meeting? Who took the minutes?
The Secretary of the Oregon Republican Party. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I phrase this right. I want to make a comment and let you respond to it, but I understand there's differences of opinion here in the room as far as procedure and whether or not it was followed. What I'm kind of concerned with is, I guess, your kind of attitude towards the rights of the PCPs to express their will. You know, in your comment a few minutes ago that to Brad's question about whether or not you would have continued if you felt that, you know, the CDs were continuing in a proper fashion past 5 o'clock, whether you would have respected those votes, and you said no.
I think you mischaracterized what I said, but I can either respond now or let you finish.
Okay, well, go ahead and respond.
If we had a 2/3 majority to continue forward of all the different groups, yes, we would have continued forward.
Okay, that wasn't really what I was saying.
Okay.
So, we've had some discussion here that after 5 o'clock, the decorum broke down, and that we're uncertain about whether the votes were proper past that point. And I think Brad's question was, if decorum was proper, votes were properly authenticated, would you have, and I guess I'll re-ask his question, would you have taken those votes into consideration when appointing or electing the alternates?
Only if all of the CDs had voted and we had a 2/3 vote of the assemblage of the CDs.
Okay, so you're giving me
Then you held it in this meeting and you couldn't even start to get the
See, my
number in.
concern with that is not so much to talk about the rules, but more to get back at the attitude that I think you're representing about, whether or not do the PCPs have the voice, or does the power in the Oregon Republican Party come from the top?
Well, excuse me. According to Robert's Rules of Order, which is appropriate in this case, the body can vote to extend with a 2/3 vote.
But Alan, that's an illusory requirement here because there was no mechanism for that to happen. So you could impose that for Roberts, but it wasn't really a rule that was followable, since there's no way for the 5 bodies to get together to have that vote.
And also, all 5 conventions were told the other ones have gone home, so we may as well also.
I don't know what was said at those conventions.
Well, I got video of it.
Okay. What was communicated in email and in text is we adjourn at 5 unless there's a 2/3 vote to continue forward.
Well, there was a 2/3 vote.
There was no vote. Nobody ever voted. We were just told 5 o'clock, everybody else has gone home.
I was under the understanding that was communicated. Yes, ma'am.
As Dwayne is saying here, everybody was told at 5 that all the other conventions have closed and gone home. So we all were surprised at that, and then we started calling each other, fortunately, and found out that no, 3 of the conventions were still trying to continue. Now that sounds to me like more than 2/3 of a vote.
Okay.
And some lady got up and walked out with our ballots.
That'd be Terri Moffit over here.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I've got a question. Did you ask Terri Moffit to leave with the ballots, or did she do that on her own accord?
I asked Terri and everybody, once we did not have 2/3 to carry forward, pack everything up and go home. Terri went out to
you weren't there, how do you know there wasn't 2/3?
Because nobody reported back into me. I have a string of text messages where CD1 is closed down, CD2 is closed down, CD3 is closed down, CD4 was closed down, CD5 was closed down. Then I got a message back, CD4 voted to stay open.
Alan, did
that
you
much
have...
I still have, but CD1, 2, 3, and 5 had closed down. I told Terri, take the ballots and leave. Terri was in the parking lot. I called Terri. I had her on the phone. I could tell that Terri was feeling threatened. I guess I can say that word. And that Dale was actually putting himself in a position to make her feel less threatened. I told Terri to turn over the ballots because nothing's more important than your safety. And Terri turned over those ballots.
Where does Terri get the rights to take those ballots?
She's staff.
Do you not read your own rules that we talk about? The convention rules clearly state that the incoming chair takes those and delivers them to you.
Okay, that's fine.
No, it's not. That's the rules.
Okay.
She was stealing those ballots.
Terri was under my instructions. If that wasn't according to the rules, that's on me. It's not on Terri. The convention had closed down.
It doesn't matter if it's closed down. The rules are that the chair takes them.
And Dwayne, again, I really appreciate you guys indulging me to take you through this. It's all been vetted.
So did the people the delegates that were picked because of the appointed alternates having a right to vote, did those people actually vote on themselves out here in Oregon and all the other disenfranchised states?
I don't understand your question.
See, the alternates, for the first time ever in Oregon, you closed the meeting and you brought the alternates in and let them vote. I'm pretty much so guaranteed that you'd be the chair of the delegation because they'd never before been able to vote again. So then also, that guaranteed that your establishment handpicked people can become the committee people. So whoever was in the committee of the rules, did they get a vote on themselves in the other disenfranchised states?
I don't know. I wasn't in the other states.
Do you see how that kind of looks
No,
bad?
I have no way of knowing. I can't. Dwayne, you're asking me about something that I could not possibly have information on.
How could you not know that?
I have no idea what went on in these other states.
There's only 4 different conventions going on over there.
In the other states?
No, I mean at Tampa.
Yeah,
the committees. There's only 4 committees going on out there.
I have no idea.
You don't know if the person that was the delegate from Oregon voted on the rules and what they voted.
No, of course they voted on the rules.
So they were able to vote themselves in as being the legitimate committee people, and vote you in as being the legitimate chairman of the delegation.
Wait. I think the people that were on the rules committee, did they participate? They were delegates, right? Not alternate delegates. Right. And did they participate in the delegation meeting? Yes. Did they vote for themselves? I have no idea. It was a secret ballot. Right? Yes, sir.
Granted, this is an informal meeting, but I would ask that we have a vote among us if we could cancel this and get down to something. We're not going to do anything with it, just heat things back up again. If there's any real pressing questions or something like that, but we can still come back to Robert's Rules of Order in an informal meeting, I guess, and ask that we cease debate on what happened. Everybody has expressed their dismay, disgust, and anger. I feel I would hope that I would have some agreement with the group that we carry on with something else right now.
I still got more questions.
You want to put that in the form of a motion?
I'll move that we cease
second.
debate. Cease debate on what we're doing.
I move I'd like to make
There's a
speak about
motion
that a
on the
bit
floor
more.
already.
Motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor, seconded.
It's been seconded.
And it's been seconded. Any debate on the motion?
Yeah, as a member of the grievance committee, I want to make sure that everybody, if there's any new issues that want to be brought out, that we hear them. So we have a complete report.
Part of the problem with this grievance committee, in my estimation, is it's only comprised of Lane County people, and CD4 is more than just Lane County.
There are grievance committees formed in other counties too. I don't know.
Point of order.
We have a motion on the floor. Does this discussion address?
I call the question.
Call the question. The question's been called. All in favor of terminating this discussion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay. As nays have it. Is there a teleprompter to read off of that?
Somebody wanted to divide the house?
I do have a question, Alan. I know you keep coming back to that there needed to be a 2/3 vote of all 5 conventions to override the agenda, even without arguing whether that was within your authority. Did you have a pre-planned methodology available to the 5 conventions to do that was made available and known to those conventions?
I communicated it to all of them. So we communicated it to all the staff people that were in that logistical meeting, and all the staff people knew it. And then I communicated it via text message and via email. And then I think I personally talked to, I can't tell you that I talked to all 5. I talked to at least 3 of the chairs about the process for extending, right around 5 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a question about the convention out there. Rule number 40 of the RNC rules is plurality. How come you didn't do that?
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
Rule number 40 is plurality. That gives the candidate 15 minutes to speak.
What convention are you talking about? The CD4 convention?
No, Tampa.
That's all.
Wait, I didn't do it?
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yes,
I'm
plurality is rule number 40 of the RNC rules.
Okay.
You have a chance to have a candidate give a 15-minute speech and be on the ballot. They haven't done that in years out there.
Okay.
I called Janie Collette to get you guys to do that, and she gave me the runaround and wasn't very copacetic about all that. And out there at Tampa, I ended up doing that all by myself. I got the plurality for the state of Oregon out there. We were the fifth state. It takes 5 states to get a candidate to give a speech.
Okay, I wasn't familiar with it.
Okay.
Anything else? Let me tell you. Let me editorialize for a moment here. And Dwayne was there. When we finally got to the point where I was going to announce the votes, what I had understood was Romney's name was the only name that was in nomination. You can take issue with how that all happened. I was informed that technically I only had to report the Romney votes. And in fact, that Gingrich had released his votes and that Santorum had released his votes, but with Gingrich there was a letter. With Santorum, it really wasn't clear because there was just this tweet from Rick Santorum that said, hey, you're released. So I had to make a decision of whether or not I was going to allow the Santorum delegates and the Gingrich delegates to change their vote. And I decided that I would. And the Gingrich, well, I don't want to tell you who switched their votes, but the bottom line was it was 4 for Ron Paul, 1 for Rick Santorum, and the balance for Mitt Romney. I thought it was important to report all the votes. And I know there were a lot of people that went through a process, personally spending a lot of time and a lot of energy in order to get to the point that we had gotten to. I also knew that if I reported the Ron Paul votes last, they were turning off the microphones. So I consciously reported the Ron Paul votes first so that I would be able to report them. I reported Santorum second, and there was one person on our delegation who felt very strongly about Rick Santorum and the values that he represented. And even though he had released his people, they wanted to make sure that their voice was heard and that the Oregon voice had a strong voice for Rick Santorum. And I reported that, and then I reported Romney last. And it was very important for me to do that because I know you guys worked really, 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 really hard, right? And that energy is energy that we need to change the country and to change the direction that we're headed. Because without that energy and without that intensity, Barack Obama is going to get elected president again. So it was a small gesture on my part. I think you guys noticed that I did it. And I felt very strongly that that was the right thing to do. I know it doesn't make up for everything that happened. Hopefully, as we go forward, we are going to be able to put things in place that will make it much better as we go forward. But I just want to say that.
Thank you. But it's still, rule number 40 would have been able to give Ron Paul a speech out there.
Okay.
What do you think about Boehner ramrodding through the rules of the party for the next 4 years? It was clearly shown on the teleprompter that the yays had it before he even announced the nays. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm not going to say it was the Ron Paul people because it was a whole lot more than that, started yelling division about that.
There were, those rules were passed out of committee by large margins. I don't know what that margin is. It was 2/3, 1/3, or 75%, 20%, or 80-20. Chairman Boehner made the call on the floor. I do understand that the teleprompter had a script for him. Oftentimes when you're doing things like this, there is a script for it. If Chairman Boehner felt that the result was something different than the script, he certainly has the option to do that. He clearly felt that there wasn't, so he didn't.
But it only takes one person to yell division. The whole place is going crazy between division and screaming USA, which means absolutely nothing.
I think, one of the problems that you have in that environment is determining who's a delegate and who's not at a time when people are screaming like that. There was also a lot of noise coming from off the floor. So he had to determine and make the call in real time, am I getting a call for division from a real delegate that I can, attest to the fact that they're authorized to do that or not? I'm not John Boehner. I can't tell you what went through his mind, but I can tell you the environment that we were in. You were there too.
If that's the case, then why even call for an A or an A if you don't know if people on the floor are authorized to vote?
Well, he had to make that determination. I mean, you saw it.
It was a 2/3. We yelled division. It was clearly seen from lots of people on the floor. All it takes from there is a head count.
Well, and clearly the chairman didn't agree with you.
Okay. Well, clearly the chairman was wrong, wasn't he?
I'm not the chairman.
That's a lot of
I was on the
people
floor.
wrong.
It was a cacophony. I'm not going to speak for the chairman.
What do you think about the new rules?
I voted on the rules with everybody else.
You voted for?
I voted on the rules like everybody else. It's a Rule 12. It is the one where you can change the rules with a 3/4 vote of the body of the RNC. And Rule 16, I believe, is the rule that binds the delegates if you're bound. I know that's not the right terminology. I don't think Rule 16 applies very much in Oregon, since our delegate binding is actually ORS. And Rule 12 is a rule that allows you to tweak things at the RNC level during the intervening years. I've participated at the RNC for only a year. There's only one vote that was ever a 3/4 vote, and that was the vote on the national popular vote, not to support the national popular vote. It's incredibly difficult to get 3/4, and
but that's the rules. It should have been followed. Go back to 16A.
I'm not familiar with 16A. Oh, yes, the new
RNC.
16A.
Yeah, the new 16A. That, I believe, also gives the candidate the right to disqualify anybody he wants as a delegate and replace them with his new pick.
As far as I know, that was true with the original 16 that passed out of committee. The modified 16 that actually came to the floor does not, as far as I know, does not do that. But you're right. The original one that passed out of committee did in fact do that, and that's where. Pardon?
Did you bring a flak jacket down with you?
No, sir, I didn't. But the reason that I'm here is this is part of my job, right?
Thank you for coming.
Well, I got elected to do this, and it's not the easiest part of the job, but it also wasn't easy when I ran for governor to do a debate in front of the Sierra Club. So it was me, Kitzhaber, and Bradbury in front of 1,000 people at the Sierra Club in downtown Portland. And I've always felt if you can't stand up in front of somebody, even if they don't agree with you, and actually be able to defend your positions, you don't really have any business in terms of doing a job like this, right? So you might not agree with me, but I got to give you the opportunity to at least talk to me about it. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to come down earlier. This process was an all-consuming process. This entire summer was completely consumed by walking through this process for me. And you know what? I'm very happy to do it, because that's what my job is, that I get paid nothing to do. It's a full-time volunteer position. So if any of you would like to run for chairman of the party, That's something that that's something that everybody's eligible to do. Okay. Anything else? Done? Yes. Aaron?
The platform for the conventions, that is all set at the Oregon party. When is that meeting? That would be. When do we have to get ready for that? When will that be?
Which platform?
For
our
the
state
ORP.
Yeah.
We just had it.
You just
didn't
did
we?
it September 9th.
For,
September
is that when
9th,
the bylaws
2011.
are voted on? All that.
No.
It's the platform.
So bylaws can be voted on. Changes to bylaws can be made. There's certain notice requirements and that sort of thing with bylaws and rules, but it can be made at any central committee meeting, I believe. Right? So we have a bylaws committee and we have a rules committee. What I would do if somebody, in fact, Wendy Frome, who I think you know, has given us a bylaws proposal. I've referred that to the bylaws committee. The bylaws committee will review that proposal and come to the floor with a recommendation, pass or don't pass or modifications or whatever. We'll have that discussion at the next central committee meeting. We'll have an up-down vote at the central committee meeting.
Okay. Now you said this other meeting just happened on.
The platform was September 9th, 2011.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
What do you guys
year?
decide?
Invented, right?
I think it's every other year, so we have another next.
Oh,
Every
okay.
2
Next
years.
year there'll be a.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
it's kind of quiet.
I'd like to ask one more question here. Going back to picking the alternates. You picked people that never filed for the position. Why did you do that when there was enough that did file for their positions?
I didn't look at it to know if there were enough that did file. I'll take your word for it that there were. We took all the people that had filed and we had paperwork for them. It's consistent with and I don't remember if it's the rules or the bylaws, that we didn't take anybody new. We didn't go out and say, hey, you didn't file, would you like to fill out the paperwork? Please fill out your paperwork. We took the people that had filed and used them as the pool. We also made sure that the CD people were CD people, that they were in the CD. I don't know that we had to, but we did.
Well, you make everybody file for certain spots, and you make them circle what they're going to do, and then you guys just totally ignore all that.
It was, my interpretation was it was different when you're filling vacancies. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I just hope we do have a grievance committee that's working on this. What's happened is behind us, and my hope is that whatever comes out of our grievance committee, whatever happens going forward, is something that's productive, helps us focus our attention on the next go around to make it work better, smoother, more efficient without having the issues that we had this time. So really, I hope we set out now to be constructive moving forward. And for you guys who have so graciously volunteered to be on our grievance committee, let's make it constructive. Let's come up with a list of proposals and rule changes and changes to the way that the convention's held that we think will help this not to happen in the future. So moving forward, be constructive. I appreciate you, Alan, for being here. I also knew when you came you were going to get shot full of holes today. No flak jacket, no vest here. And if nothing else, for all of you who are here, I hope you see that Alan's willing to stand up in front of you and take responsibility as chairman of the Oregon Republican Party for what happened and agreeing to be constructive going forward as well. So thanks for coming.